إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. The definition is humility and submissiveness to Allah, submitting to whatever Allah has predecreed and whatever He ordained and commanded. When the earth is at peace and serenity and calm and composed, and there's no movement in it, Allah called it Ardhun Khaashi'ah. وَمِنْ آيَاتِ أَنَّكَ تَرَى الْأَرْضَ خَاشِعَةً. And among the signs of Allah is that you see the earth khashi'ah, no movement, it's calm. When there's no water, nothing grows on it, it's very calm, no movement in it. So it's Ardhun Khaashi'ah. When it rains, it's stirred. Stirred is movement. That is the opposite of Khushoo. It's stirred, that means life and growth. There's a movement in it. So suddenly, there's a movement. So Khushoo of a human would mean the peace, tranquility, the serenity in the heart and the effect it has on the limbs. When is Khushoo ibadah? When we say stand in Salah and Khushoo, that's what we mean. His Salah should have the ibadah of Khushoo in it. It should have the Khushoo status in it. He stands in humility, serenity, peace with Allah in the heart, and it shows on the limbs. Its effect show when his head is bowed, when he's looking into the place that he's prostrated, when he doesn't move. Even in walking to Salah, you need Khushoo in walking to Salah. Walking to Salah, he walks calmly and in serenity. That's Khushoo in walking to Salah. So when is Khushoo shirk? If someone stands in front of a grave or a person, his limbs and his heart are in humility and serenity, that's Khushoo, even if you don't add nothing else to it. So if I stand in front of someone in the Khushoo fashion, that I'm only supposed to stand to Allah in, that's shirk, even if I don't add anything to it. If I stand before someone in a matter that I stand in front of Allah, that is in itself shirk. You don't have to add to it dua. In itself, that stand, if I stand in front of a grave or someone in a matter that I stand before Allah in Khushoo, that becomes shirk akbar. The best example on that, detailed example, is in Medina. I remember when I was young, and even when I was older, I seen it. But when in the university, when I was older, I also seen it. But it stuck to my mind when I was young because of what my father, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a long life full of deeds, what he used to do. You see many in the haram in Medina, in front of the grave, near the grave, and even sometimes at a long distance from the grave in the haram, and they would face the grave. The qibla would be that way. They would face the grave. And when they face the grave, they stand with their hands as if it's in Salah, and they're facing the grave, and they're in Khushoo. And you would wish to see that in Salah. That type of Khushoo that you see them standing in Khushoo to the Prophet ﷺ, you would wish to see that in Salah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I remember my father would every time take them and explain to him that this is not right. Their movements, their humility, even their breathing is at its peak of Khushoo before a grave or a wali sometimes. That Khushoo is the type of shirk that we're talking about. You also see some deviant sects stand before their living awliya in such Khushoo where they suppress their movements and even their breathing in Khushoo for that person. Even at times walking backwards as to not give that wali or the person they claim a wali their back. And sometimes they do that in front of graves. That type of Khushoo is the shirk akbar. That Khushoo belongs only to Allah. Similar to that is walking to a grave. We said walking to Salah, you should have Khushoo in it. When some people walk to graves of their supposed awliya, they walk and they have the feeling, the heart feeling of Khushoo. That's shirk. That shirk is shirk. That Khushoo is shirk, even without nothing combined to it. You don't have to make dua to be shirk. Khushu' is independent ibadah that belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the proof is in the same verse of the previous two. وَكَانُوا لَنَا خَاشِعِينَ. Now what's the difference between khushu' and khudu'? There's a very similar word that in Arabic, khudu'. And it's another ibadah. Khudu' is an ibadah that pertains more to the body parts, to the limbs. Whereas khushu' pertains more to the heart and the voice and the eyes and everything else. Allah used khushu' in the Quran, mentioned it in the Quran. It's mentioned in the Quran. Allah said, khashi'atan about the eyesight. That there's khushu' of the eyes. Khashi'atan absaruhum. Khushu' in the voice. Allah mentioned it about the voice as well. وَخَشَعَتِ الْأَصْوَاتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ. Khushu' is a ibadah and part of Salah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. They're successful. Khushu' is so important in all ibadat, but more essential, of course, because Salah is important. It's more stressed in Salah. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, and this hadith is authentic as a statement of Abu Sa'id, and not attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. So it's a statement of Abu Sa'id. However, even though this is a statement of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, something like this takes the ruling as if the Prophet ﷺ said it. له حكم الرفع. Why? Even though Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said it in his statement, why? Because matters like this, which relate to knowledge of the unseen, we know for a fact Sahaba would never speak about them had they not heard something about them from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Sa'id said, when Allah created Jannah, a brick of gold and another of silver, He said, speak to Jannah. And Jannah said, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. The verses in the beginning of Surat al-Mu'minun. Successful indeed are the believers. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Who are they? Who are the successful ones? الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Those who offer their salah with submissiveness and khushu'. With full submissiveness and khushu'. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Our ibadah here. Allah based success in the verse on the ibadah of khushu' and salah. Allah based success in that verse on the ibadah of khushu'. How to attain khushu' in salah or ibadat is something that will take another lecture by itself, or a few lectures actually. And here we try to stay focused on the tawheed aspect of the ibadah instead of going deep into the spiritual aspect. But we do mention spiritual aspects sometimes because they're essential to our tawheed. But a quick point on that is that because it's neglected so much, one of the biggest factors in attaining khushu' and salah and ibadah is matters before the ibadah. Having fear of Allah outside of salah and before salah, or any ibadah that you may seek khushu' in. When one has khawf and rahbah of Allah, and these ibadat are intertwined, he does the ordains. He walks away from the prohibitions. Allah will bless him with khushu' in the salah. Try it and see. If you enter a ibadah, precede in it with the smallest of the sunnahs, you'll feel your ibadah is different. You'll feel more khushu' in it. It could be simple as entry to the masjid in the proper sunnah way, with your right foot, with the right dua, with lowering your gaze before entering the masjid. Prayer the sunnah when you enter the masjid. Pray the sunnah of the salah, or pray the sunnah of the wudu. That person who did that will definitely have a different feel of khushu' than one who just walked into the masjid at takbir al-ihram and just said Allahu Akbar with the imam, neglects the sunnah. Or worse than that is one who had just done sins. He let his eyes roam freely at the sisters before he entered the masjid, and then he expects khushu' in his salah right after that. Your lifestyle of ta'ah is what will bring you khushu' in your ibadah, and more so in, for example, salah. You'll see one person, for example, khushu' and reciting the Quran, reciting normal verses of the Quran. Maybe verses that don't contain no part of fear in them, but his heart melts and he begins to cry and weep, while his partner near him or close to him, He's dazed at what caused this man to have khushu' over these verses. If you want to attain or you want to strengthen your khushu', change your entire lifestyle. It's not just the moments of the salah, it's the entire lifestyle. And matters preceding that ibadah. And that's what many neglect. Khushu' also comes by training yourself. You have to train yourself into khushu'. Khushu' comes by salah at night. And you gotta how many people beg Allah and plead Allah to bless them with the honor and privilege of having khushu' in their ibadat? Learning also the qualities of Allah and what Allah mentioned about Himself in the Quran, what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us of the qualities and attributes of Allah, letting them register in your heart and sink in your mind. Those matters are what will grant you khushu' in your ibadat. That's just a brief example of some of the things that will give you khushu' in salah. Maymun ibn Hayyan said, I never seen Muslim ibn Yasar look away in his salah. He means those little shaitanic glances, with the corner of your eye. He said, I never seen him look away in his salah, not even a short or a long glance, never. And one day a portion of the masjid crumbled and collapsed, whereas everyone in Medina, in the town, gathered, while Muslim ibn Yasar didn't even glance or leave his salah. And he was in that masjid. The best example of the last three ibadat is the story I mentioned of Urwa ibn Zubayr, Raghba and Rahba and Khushuu'. It made him numb to the knife that was heated and the saw that cut through his bones, that sawed through his bones. Khalaf ibn Ayyub was asked, why don't you wave away the flies when they come in front of your face in salah? A fly comes in front of him, and you know how annoying and irritating they are, and he never moves his hand to wave them away in salah. He said, his answer to that was, why he doesn't do that, wave them away. He said, I heard that criminals compete and bolster on how they withstand the extreme lashes of their punishment without even flinching. He said, if the criminals do that in their patient over their crimes, do you want me to flinch or move my hand while I'm standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ibn Zubayr was described when he made salah in khushu' like he was a tree trunk. The trunk of a tree, solid in salah. At-Tabarani indicates a reality that this ummah is in a hadith. Abu Darda said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, أول شيء يرفع من هذه الأمة الخشوع حتى لا ترى فيها خاشعة. Abu Darda said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the first of the matters that will leave this ummah is khushu'. There will be a time when you will enter a masjid and will not see anyone in khushu'. That's the status of this ummah today. What's wrong and what he warned about is what is happening today. When one adjusts his internal heart and khushu', his limbs begin to show. The khushu' begins to show on the limbs. One works on perfecting his heart's khushu', and that will settle the limbs. Settling the limbs without the heart khushu', some called it the khushu' of nifaq.